They were the billionaire's perfect little girls, Lily and Grace, born into luxury, adored by the world, yet trapped in silence. Doctors said they were completely deaf since birth, their future sealed by a cruel fate. But on the 35th floor of Hawthorne Enterprises, a new cleaning lady noticed something no one else dared to see. A coin dropped, a whisper shared. Could it be possible that the twins weren't truly deaf at all? What she uncovered would not only shatter a father's empire, but also expose a chilling truth hidden behind wealth, power, and lies. Maria Johnson was 32 years old when she walked into the glass towers of Hawthorne Enterprises for the very first time. For most, it was just another corporate skyscraper. But for Maria, it was a new beginning. She had worked all her life in quiet, thankless cleaning jobs, often invisible to those around her. But this time felt different. The 35th floor belonged to Jonathan Hawthorne, the billionaire CEO admired for his power, feared for his temper, and pitted for one thing: his twin daughters, Lily and Grace, who had been declared completely deaf since birth. Doctors, even the most renowned specialists, had confirmed it. The girls lived in silence, their futures dictated by a world that thought it already knew their limits. But Maria had grown up watching her younger brother Daniel suffer after a wrong diagnosis of deafness left him isolated for years. She knew the signs, the subtle ways people react to sound without realizing it. And on her very first day, she noticed something others had missed. Pen tap, a coin drop, a flicker of reaction in the twins' eyes. Tiny moments no one else seemed to catch. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something about the story didn't add up. She didn't know it yet, but she was standing at the edge of a secret that would shatter the Hawthorne empire and put her directly in the path of a truth far darker than she could ever imagine. From the very beginning, Maria couldn't ignore the uneasy truth unfolding before her eyes. On her second day at Hawthorne Enterprises, she noticed how the twins' caregiver, Ms. Rogers, treated Lily and Grace as if they weren't only deaf but also incapable of understanding anything at all. She waved her arms dramatically, overpronounced every word, and restricted the girls' lives to silent routines. It was condescending, almost cruel. But what unsettled Maria most was what happened when Ms. Rogers briefly stepped out of the room. The silence broke. Lily leaned toward Grace and whispered, a faint, almost hidden sound, but a sound nonetheless. Grace nodded. Maria froze. Her heart raced, her mind instantly flashing back to her brother Daniel's lost years in isolation because one powerful doctor had insisted he was deaf. That same name came back to haunt her: Dr. Edward Collins. He was the one who had misdiagnosed Daniel. And here, on the walls of Jonathan Hawthorne's office, was a photograph: Collins shaking hands with the billionaire himself. Maria felt the floor shift beneath her. Could the twins be victims of the same fraudulent diagnosis? And if so, why would their father, with all his wealth, go along with it? The questions clawed at her as she pieced together the signs. The nervous looks from the girls, the way they reacted to sudden noises, and the heavy silence that didn't feel natural. It felt forced. When Maria tried to bring her suspicions to Jonathan, his reaction was cold and venomous. He dismissed her as nothing more than a cleaner who didn't understand medicine, warning her to keep her mouth shut if she wanted to keep her job. The message was clear. She was not supposed to see what she had seen. But Maria wasn't one to back down. Determined, she reached out to her cousin Caroline, a nurse at St. Mary's Children's Hospital. Caroline confirmed what Maria feared. Dr. Collins had been disgraced, his medical license revoked after multiple families accused him of false diagnoses. The scandal, however, had been buried quietly, shielded by powerful men with deep pockets. Collins had disappeared from the headlines, but not from practice. Caroline introduced Maria to two women who had spent years fighting to expose Collins: Dr. Rachel Lopez, a speech therapist, and Dr. Sophia Adams, a child protection social worker. They had documented cases, testimonies, and evidence, all pointing to a disturbing pattern. Wealthy families were manipulated into believing lies about their children's health, with Collins pocketing millions along the way. With every new revelation, Maria's fear grew heavier. Why would Jonathan, a billionaire with endless resources, cling to this deception? The answer came when she stumbled upon confidential documents hidden in his office. Among them were files on Isabella Hawthorne, Jonathan's wife. The world believed she had died in an accident. But the truth was more sinister. She was alive, confined to a psychiatric hospital after challenging Jonathan about the twins' supposed deafness. Maria's hands trembled as she held the papers. She realized now it wasn't just about a medical fraud. It was about control. Jonathan had silenced his wife, threatened his daughters, and partnered with a disgraced doctor to maintain a story that served only his power and financial gain. And if Maria pushed any further, she risked being silenced too. Still, Maria knew she couldn't turn back. The twins had trusted her with their secret. The weight of their whispered words pressed against her chest, fueling her resolve. She had uncovered just enough to know the truth was bigger, darker, and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. And the next step she took would decide whether this story ended in justice or in silence forever. The tension finally reached its breaking point inside the gleaming boardroom of Hawthorne Enterprises. Jonathan stood before his executives, his empire polished and untouchable. But outside those glass walls, Maria had brought reinforcements: Caroline, Dr. Lopez, Dr. Adams, and investigators carrying a court order. The doors burst open, and for the first time, Jonathan's carefully constructed illusion began to crack. In front of the entire board, Lily and Grace were asked to take a simple test. The room held its breath as the girls listened, responded, and then spoke. Clear, strong voices filled the air. For 6 years, the world had believed they were deaf. Now, their words echoed like thunder, exposing the lie. Gasps rippled across the room. Executives turned pale, and Jonathan's face twisted in shock as his daughters shattered his deception with nothing more than their own voices. But the most devastating blow was yet to come. The door opened again, and Isabella Hawthorne, once declared dead, walked in. Frail but unbroken, she crossed the room as Lily and Grace ran into her arms, crying with relief. The sight silenced even the most powerful men in the room. Jonathan, who had tried to erase her existence, now stood powerless as the family he tore apart reunited before his eyes. The empire he built on fraud, lies, and control collapsed in seconds. Papers and evidence laid bare his conspiracy with Dr. Collins. The whispers Maria had once caught now roared into undeniable truth. And as investigators stepped forward, Jonathan realized there was no escape. For Maria, it was the moment everything changed, the moment the voices of 2 little girls brought down a billionaire. 6 months later, the dust of Jonathan Hawthorne's empire had settled into ruin. Stripped of his power, he sat behind prison walls, serving a 15-year sentence for fraud, abuse, and conspiracy. His company collapsed, his fortune dissolved, and his name became a warning rather than a legacy. Dr. Collins and his associates faced trial across multiple states, and more than 150 families came forward, each with children scarred by false diagnoses, each demanding justice. But from the rubble of corruption rose something far greater. Maria Johnson's bravery turned her into a national figure. Her book, The Echo of Silence, became a bestseller, not just for the drama of the case but for the truth it carried. She founded a foundation dedicated to exposing fraudulent medical practices, giving families a voice where silence once reigned. Lily and Grace thrived at a normal school, laughing, playing, and speaking freely, proof of what happens when truth is allowed to breathe. And Isabella, no longer erased, rebuilt her life as a lawyer fighting for family rights, determined that no other mother would be silenced the way she was. But beyond the headlines and courtroom victories, this story echoed a deeper reality. Maria had been dismissed, belittled, and told she was just a cleaner. Her warnings carried less weight because of who she was and where she came from. Yet it was her courage and her refusal to stay silent that exposed an empire built on lies. This story isn't just about one family, one billionaire, or one brave woman. It's about the systems that silence people because of race, class, or power, and the moments when ordinary voices rise to break that silence. So the question remains, how many more voices must be ignored before the world finally learns to listen? What do you think about Maria's courage to stand up against wealth, power, and lies? Do you believe more hidden truths like this still exist today? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if the story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that the world needs to hear.